Africa, I'll start with you, your reflections of a man we all loved and admired and that you worked with. He used to host, of course, amongst other things, The Breakfast Show on 702 for many, many years.
Which was must-listen to breakfast show every Sunday because you got insights into certainly the world of movies, the world of literature, and generally lifestyle like nowhere else in certainly Johannesburg or South Africa, I would argue. He was kind, he was unbelievably witty, funny, deep repository of knowledge. Every time I would either read his reviews or listen to him reviewing movies and films, there was always such a deep sense of context that he would provide to the listener, to the reader, to understand why it is that this film is either good or rubbish. And he found some wonderful, flowery ways of describing things when they were rubbish. He was so kind, so gentle, and I learned so much from him in the time that I had the privilege really of working alongside him.
And of course, it wasn't just the world of film that he knew about. He contributed to cultural life and literary life. And we know that now the Sunday Times Fiction Awards, the Fiction Prize, is known as the Barry Ronge Fiction Prize. Tell us about his role in promoting South African literature.
I know you've got Jenny Chris Williams coming up shortly after me, and perhaps she'll be able to give more insight because, of course, Jenny Chris Williams is all about books. But he was honored by the Sunday Times in naming the Fiction Prize after him after he stopped working generally. He had, for many, many years, written the longest column in the Sunday Times called Spit and Polish. In fact, he published a collection of some of those columns in a book published by Penguin Books, I think, in 2006. It is still worth a read because it gives you an insight into a time in South Africa like no other. He is a man who loved literature, and it was quite fitting for the Sunday Times to honor him in that way. I judged the Fiction Prize twice in one of the times I was chairing it, and it truly is a celebration of just rare writing, and it was so right and so apt that someone the magnitude of Barry Ronge was honored in that way.
Well, let's segue nicely then. Thank you, Africa, for your reflections into Jenny Chris Williams and what she remembers of Barry Ronge, an author and veteran broadcaster in her own right. Jenny, gosh, you and I must stop meeting like this. I joked about that the last time we spoke, but another legend is no more.
No, and I mean, his loss has been so noticeable for the last few years when he hasn't been able to speak too much. And you know, his partner cared for him. Africa has said just about everything, but what he didn't have time for is Barry standing up at the Sunday Times Book Awards when it was grand and giving us a dissertation where people, the whole audience would sit absolutely silently listening to that wonderful mind echoing what the feeling in the room and taking us to places that only literature can take you to. He really was extraordinary. But also, he was also very funny, you know. I'm not going to go over what Africa said because he said it so succinctly and so beautifully. But he also did a bit of fashion. He did a bit of fashion for Fair Lady magazine. And Barry and I used to do an Oscar show.
Yes, of course. Of course. I remember that. Who can forget?
Yes, and he was so catty. He was so wonderful. And he remembered the lace at someone's throat and the nipple showing here and there. And I mean, the two of us just absolutely adored that show and could have gone on. It was wise to stop us. And whatever. But his contribution to the arts in general is absolutely phenomenal, and he just had it. The tragedy is that we don't hear his voice anymore. And I'm sure there are other people who can do bits and pieces of what Barry did, but not the collective. He really was an extraordinary talent, and I so miss him. And I want to just say his partner, Albertus, who's cared for him for all of these years, he needs his own Oscar. What a loss.
Absolutely.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.